What's good, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Small Talk on Head-to-Head Fantasy Basketball, where I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Anson.
What's up, guys? Today we're going to be covering buy low candidates. These are players that haven't been performing that well, but we think they're going to perform better throughout the season. So if one of your friends or someone in your league has one of these players that haven't been performing well, they might want to trade these players away. They're kind of panicking. These are players that you can target.
Yeah, yeah. And this is, obviously very early in the season, but some people that, they're very emotional. They're like, yo, I'm scared of these players. Get this guy off my team. If you throw them a good enough offer, they just might bite, right? So without further ado, let's get started. First things first, we got Mikal Bridges. Okay, his ADP is number 17. All right. So obviously ADP 17, we're looking at what, Anson? Averaging around 45 fantasy points, I would say. Around that, right?
Yeah, something like that. So he should be averaging 45 fantasy points. Last year he did. When he was on the Brooklyn Nets, he was averaging 45 fantasy points. It's just as of right now, just these last couple games are the first couple games of the season. They seem to be running Cam Thomas. Cam Thomas been looking like '08 Kobe Bryant. So it's kind of hard to really kind of predict how Mikal Bridges gets impacted by Cam Thomas. We don't know if Cam Thomas's minutes are sustainable. Uh, but regardless, I don't think he should be this low. I don't think he should be averaging only 19 points per game. He's only shooting 41%. He's shooting 47 for his career, and in his recent years, he's been shooting close to 50%. And he's also doubling his turnovers from his career averages.
Yeah. I mean, I think you said everything I wanted to say about Mikal. Averaging only 30 fantasy points is obviously a scary look because people might start panicking, like, oh man, Cam Thomas is doing really good. Maybe he's the new face of the league. I just wanted you guys to remind, the Cam Thomas was the guy that dropped 40, 40, 40 bombs after one after another, but then he just got benched after when Mikal came, started pulling his started running the team through Mikal, right? So I don't think it's supposed to be, the end of the world, right? If you have Mikal and you're starting to panic, I'm just telling you just to chill out, just chill out, wait until maybe another 2, 3 weeks into the season, see how it progresses, right? If Mikal doesn't get better, we'll make another video on that. Maybe you can try to trade him. But I mean, I don't see that happening around. I'm pretty sure Anson doesn't see that happening, right? So if you don't have Mikal and someone in your league is complaining about Mikal, throw him a trade, throw him a little trade, throw him a little bone, see if they bite, right? Let's move on from Mikal. We got Kyrie Irving, Uncle Drew, right? I know a lot of people were already unsure about Kyrie when he got traded to the Mavs, right? And we only saw like a small sample size of Kyrie due to like the post trade deadline averages, and Kyrie looked great the post trade deadline, right? He was averaging 50 fantasy points with Luka on the board, with Luka on the court, and then all of a sudden, first weekend, he's averaging 34 fantasy points, right? And people are saying, okay, what's going on? Luka's going crazy, right? Luka's averaging like 70 fantasy points a game right now, right? But then Kyrie is very, very quiet, right? So I think it's gonna balance out, right? If you just look at what's going on right now, he's only shooting 40% from the field goal, right? 16% from threes, right? So a lot of players that don't really look into the research of this are just saying Kyrie's washed. Kyrie's okay. Let's try trade for Kyrie then, right? If someone in your league is saying Kyrie's washed, okay, just be like, yeah, you might be right. Let me throw you a trade. I'll hold on to Kyrie if you want somebody else, right? So, however, if you do have Kyrie, same thing with Mikal. Don't panic. All right, these guys were expecting to bounce back. 16% from three is crazy, right? I think that's worse than Giannis. All right, it might be even worse than Shaq shooting threes, right? I don't think Kyrie's worse than them shooting threes. But yeah, if you just look over his 2023 stats, right? Big jump in field goal, big jump in 3-point percentages, obviously 27 points per game. So I think if Kyrie just gets a little better, shakes off that rust, I think he easily average around 47, 40, 48 fantasy points a game, easily, in my opinion.
Yeah, and he averaged 49 fantasy points for the entirety of last season. After he got traded to the Mavs, he was actually in a more favorable position playing with Luca. opposed to playing with Katie in Brooklyn, he was actually able to average 52.5 fantasy points, which actually put him ninth. And that's a 19 game sample size. I just don't see 20, 30. Obviously I don't think I have to explain too much, right? Nobody thinks Kyrie's gonna average 30, not even 40. So I think even if he has a down year, you should expect at least 45 fantasy points for him. So honestly, if someone in your league's panicking, Kyrie just had two bad shooting games. Maybe they think Luka is going off because for whatever reason the offense has changed and the Mavs actually has been winning games with this formula of Kyrie not taking as many shots, Luka taking a lot of shots. If you think that's true, if they think that's true, I would honestly maybe try throwing that person like a top 35, 40 player, maybe someone that averages 40 fantasy points per game. Guys that you could throw, for example, someone who averaged 40 fantasy points per game would be like DeMar DeRozan, somewhere in that ballpark of a player. If you can trade DeMar DeRozan and maybe the 12th guy on your roster, that's someone I would try to target. Maybe like Jamal Murray, guys that average 40, and you can throw in a little extra to see if they would bite. But I wouldn't go too crazy because you also have to remember, yes, Kyrie should be averaging 48 fantasy points, but you also have to consider his injury history. So you would really evaluate him at around 45 fantasy points. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree, Anson. Let's see what we got next. Pascal Siakam. Okay, okay. You know what, Anson? This is your guy, so I'm gonna let you handle it. Go for it.
Yeah, so this guy's really disappointed me. So if you watch our channel, I've been really high on Pascal Siakam. If you got our exclusive list on Discord, you see that I had Pascal Siakam at 11th, ranked this year for head-to-head fantasy points. In our small talk league we have with our subscribers, I took him very early, and he's been kind of looking like prime THT. So it's kind of bothering me, but I'm gonna just let it ride. I think Toronto's doing a lot of experiment right now with their new coach. But just to break down some of his numbers and why he's a buy low candidate, he averaged 47 fantasy points last year. Um, right now, he's currently only averaging 26 for the first week of fantasy, 37% from the field. That's just that he's never done that before. Like career field goal, 50%, close to 50%. Last year he's averaged 18.5 field goal attempts. They just lost their second best player or second best offensive player, Fred VanVleet. So his field goal should be going up. He should be taking more shots, but he's only taking 13.3. And he's also getting to the line less, almost two times less than he did last year's. And that's a big part of his game. That's three more fantasy points per game. So it's really hard to evaluate how much or fantasy points Pascal Siakam will produce because of this new coaching system. They're kind of playing the game differently. Pascal Siakam isn't really handling the ball as much as I thought he would be, especially losing their point guard. They kind of want Pascal not to dribble as much, and his assist numbers are down. He's only averaging 14.7 points per game. He averaged 24 points per game. What do you think? I know you've been watching a lot of Toronto games, or the two or three that's been out so far. So how do you think their play styles kind of affecting Pascal Siakam?
Yeah, so I have Scotty Barnes on my team, and Scotty Barnes has been doing really well. And I think it's more so like, Pascal's not doing too good. And the new coaching system is, I know a lot of people are complaining about it as well, right? They're like, why don't you run the offense through Pascal? Like they're trying to play Pascal like more of a center, like throw the ball into him in the post, let him do a little one move dribble, hook shot, or fade away. But I think Pascal is a lot better when he has the ball in his hand. His ability to, gather defenders around him and then kick the ball out, or they let him cook one on one. I think he can easily score. But I think the addition of Schroeder and obviously, the new coaching system, like I think they're still like I agree with what you said earlier. They're still trying to figure things out. And I think a lot of people who like watch the game might be like, oh my God, this is the end of Pascal. The thing is, like, they lost two of their 3 games, right? So I don't know if let's just say they lose 3 or 4 more games in a row, then there might be some pressure for them to say, hey, let's put Pascal back on the ball, and his fantasy numbers might increase from there, right? So I think Pascal at the moment, yeah, I don't think you should be too worried about it, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure you know this already. Like, we know how good Pascal can be, right? There's no way his fantasy numbers get literally cut in half. Like, he was averaging 26 the first week, but a lot of people might see that and might get panicked. Like, they're like, oh man, I drafted Pascal. Like, let me try to get him for somebody else really quick, right? Because there's a lot of people that do that. And, if someone in your league is unhappy with Pascal, throw him a bone. Like I said, throw him a trade. Try to trade for Pascal, because if Pascal goes back to his average numbers just from last year, and these are numbers with Van Vliet, right? Like Anson literally just said, they lost Van Vliet. So we're looking for Pascal to improve this year. But without Van Vliet this year, I'm looking for Pascal to get even a bigger jump, right? Pascal can easily be a top 15, top 20 player if he plays just the way he did last year, right? So if you're able to try to get Pascal, right? If someone drafted Pascal and they're like, yo, who is this guy I drafted? He's not doing that good. I don't really like him on my team. Try and get him on your team. Pascal might just win your fantasy league just from that, right? But yeah, I think Pascal's going to do a lot better. So let's move on from Pascal. All right, who we got next? We got Julius Randle. Okay, so his ADP is about 33, so it's about right about where Pascal's at, right? And then obviously going to see his averages from first week is about 30 fantasy points per game. Not as bad as Pascal, but from last year, Julius Randle was averaging 44 points per game. Right, we can just see his stats, almost losing half his points per game, shooting career low 27%, averaging about 4 turnovers. This is very unlike Julius Randle, right? I think Julius Randle should be easily a 20 point per game scorer, easily, right? Of what he can do and playmaking and able to do what he can do. I think he's a very, very solid fantasy player. But like I said, some people might think Julius Randle's getting old, or the new system with Brunson there now is, Brunson now doing good. RJ Barrett's doing better. They might be like, oh, Randle's not that good anymore. Let's try to trade him away. If anybody in your league is trying to trade Randle, you should be the first in line saying, hey, what do you want for him? Let me see what I can give you for him. Right? Don't be like, oh man, he might be right. Randle might suck. No, don't do that. Just, hey, what do you want from Randle? What are you looking at? What do you want for Randle? And see if they're trying to get something decent, right? If it's a good price for you, get it. I don't think Randle's going to average 30 points per game, like for the rest of the season. Even at his in his worst, I think he's averaging like what 40 fantasy points. Like, what do you think, Anson? Like 44 is good, but I think he can, like, even at his bottom, let's say he had a bad season, I think 40 fantasy points per game is solid for Randle, right?
Yeah, so 2 years ago, Randall did have a pretty bad season where he shot the ball a lot worse. He was averaging 25 points per game last year, but the season I'm referring to, he was actually only averaging 20 points per game. Shot the ball terribly, turned the ball over a lot, and he still was a 40 point per game average. And another thing you really have to evaluate when looking at Julius Randle is the amount of games he played. That's the reason why you drafted him as high as you did in the first place. So 33 honestly is pretty fair for Julius Randle. I think you could even take him earlier. So if you can get Julius Randle for any top 40 player, 30 to 40, I think you can do it, because Julius Randle last year, he averaged 44 fantasy points. That put him at 29th last year. He ranked 29th in terms of averages. And when you evaluate him as a player, he's not only 29, because you should rank him higher than that, because he was able to play almost every single game of the season. He played 77 games and he ranked 10th in total. So yeah, if you can trade a player around top 30 to 40 and take Julius Randle, these numbers, even if he has a down season and he has a season like he did 2 years ago, you're still getting incredible value.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, man. So make sure you guys, if you guys have Randall, same thing. Don't trip over it. Just let it just slowly let it get his groove on, get him back into the game, right? Don't be like, oh man, I'm panicking now. I lost my first week. Losing your first, second week is not gonna lose you the season. Okay, losing a player that you thought was gonna be bad and eventually turning out good is probably gonna lose you that season. Okay, so don't rush to trade players away. Okay, don't try and do that. All right, let's move on from Randall. we got Mr. Himmy Butler, bro. Right. So, people want to say Jimmy Butler is borderline a superstar of what he did last year. Right. And then all of a sudden you draft him and he's giving you 37 fantasy points a game. And you're like, what is going on? I thought Butler's gonna do really, really good. Same thing. Don't, it is the first week. Don't get too down. Right. We all know what Jimmy Butler can do, right? Like he single-handedly beat the Bucks, right? Beat the Celtics, right? So there's no, it's not just a fluke that Jimmy Butler was doing really, really good, right? But just looking at his numbers right now, it could cause a little concern, right? Like, okay, why is only Jimmy Butler going shooting, averaging 17 points per game, 16.5, shooting 31% field goal. His assist numbers are low, right? I don't think you guys should. I don't think you guys understand. They just lost two players that take up shots, take up the assist, take up playmaking, because they thought they were gonna get like Dame or get somebody else of a superstar level player. They didn't, right? So guess what? Who's gonna take up those loads? Jimmy Butler's definitely gonna be one of those players, right? So I'm expecting Jimmy Butler to do a lot better this year, right? And then if you have Butler, same thing, don't trip. If you don't have Butler and somebody else on your league is, saying, "Oh man, Butler is struggling. What's going on with Butler? I shouldn't have drafted Butler." Yada yada yada. DM him. Be like, "Yo, I'm a big fan of Butler. I want Butler. Even though he might be having a down year, what do you want for Butler? Try get something from him, right?" If that person's saying, "You know what? I don't know who's the top 40 player. I like, Carl Anthony Towns on your team, or I don't know who's doing good right
Spencer
now.
Dinwiddie was
Spencer
41
Dinwiddie.
last year in
I like
total.
Spencer Dinwiddie. Give me Spencer Dinwiddie plus, Josh Giddey or something. Do it.
He
Do
ranked
it.
at
Just give it
35.
to him. Say, okay, take it. Give me Jimmy Butler. Because I promise you, man, Jimmy Butler is not going to be averaging 37 points, fantasy points per game this year. There's just, there's just like a 0.1% chance he does. And I really doubt that's going to happen. Right. So if you do have Jimmy Butler, just relax. I know it could be a little concerned the first week. Everyone's still jittery. They're like, oh man, who do I draft? My team's not doing that good. You know, in the first few weeks, Anson will talk more about this. You shouldn't stress too much, right? Anson and I, we've seen crazy things in fantasy. I'll tell you that, man. We've seen someone be number one for the first month, and then all of a sudden they can't even make through playoffs, So it's kind of crazy, right, Anson?
Yeah, the first week is it's a lot of experiment. You're gonna see a lot of star players coming out of shape, stuff like that. Like a lot of things we don't see happening in the locker room. So I wouldn't really stress about the first 2 weeks of the season. Just I feel like you should use the first 2 weeks of the season to target people that want to, sell these players at a really good discount. You buy them, and then that's what I think the first 2 weeks is. You basically just keep your analysis of these players and just try to target them. But yeah, with Jimmy Butler, I definitely agree with you. Oh, right here, it doesn't make sense. Even his field goal stayed the same. They should be going up. There's no way his assist gets cut by like 30%. Gabe Vincent, the primary ball handler, is not there. So last year, Jimmy Butler ranked 19 in terms of average. So if you can get Jimmy Butler for, again, same deal, any top 30 or 40 player, only because Jimmy Butler's a little bit injury prone. But if you can get him for any top 30 or 4 player, 30 to 40 player, I would do it.
Yeah, I would do it too in a heartbeat. Right. But that's gonna wrap up this video. I know it's a quick video, right? So this is gonna be a buy low, segment of star players, players that had a lot of people hyped about, and they're not performing at the moment. There's a lot of people out there, trust me. There's a lot of people, even in our small talk leagues, right? I've seen people talk about like, yo, what's going on with Siakam? Should I just trade Siakam? Like, bro, it's been the first week. Chill, like, chill out. Like, I've seen some crazy things happening. So if someone in your league is unhappy with any of these players that we just talked about, throw them a trade to trade. Like, hey, what do you want for it? Right? Who do you want for that? Who do you want for that player? Right. And you never know. If they're saying, hey, yeah, give me Dinwiddie plus, DeAnthony Melton, because he did pretty good so far, or Tobias Harris. Take the trade, man. You're losing Dinwiddie and Tobias Harris for Jimmy Butler. Man, that's an easy. Please,
Please.
please follow. But yeah, that should wrap up this video. Right. Hope you guys enjoyed. Right. Is there anything else you want to add for them, Anson?
Yeah, make sure you guys stay tuned. We're gonna be dropping, keep you guys updated with these buy low, these sell highs, probably once every 2 weeks or so. We also got way more content. We're gonna teach you guys how to stream players, stream cycle, whatever you want to call it. If you want to win your fantasy season, make sure you stay tuned.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Peace.